Trident Wargaming. Build it, paint it, play it. Hey everyone, welcome back to another Trident Wargaming podcast, bolt action episode. I'm your host Andy, of course, and with me today again, battle buddy Jason.
Well, howdy.
Doing well?
Oh yeah, yep.
Very good.
I'm in it to win it.
Very good, very good. Kind of a laid back day today. Just doing the recording actually beginning of the week. So yeah, we've had a full work day and just kind of chilling out now. So great to talk some shop about hobby and the game. So thanks for joining us, of course, again. This episode we're going to be going into some bolt action. And we had one of our followers talk about or ask about going over some topics and whatnot about Calvary in the game of bolt action. So we'll be going through that, and if we have enough time as well, we'll talk about some how to deal with the tank problem or issue or whatever you want to call it in your games for bolt action. So yeah, as usual, we will start into the hobby aspect of our episode and whatnot. But before that, we'd like to do a shout out to our patrons, Frederick, Tyler, Chris, and Dustin. Thanks again for supporting us and whatnot. Every little bit helps. As you guys know, we're always trying to improve things and bring some new content and whatnot to you guys as well. So again, thank you very much. So yeah, the hobby front. How's your hobby front, Jason? Are you winning the battle?
Well, no, it's a stalemate. No, I'm doing okay, actually. I picked up a little bit of Blood Red Skies. I had a game the last week against Chris, kind of showing him how the game works, and then I got my Wing Commander book in, so Elias and I made up our squadrons.
Nice.
And we started the Battle of Britain.
Okay.
And we did our first game, and he kicked my butt. But in all that Blood Red Skiesiness, I started painting up a little bit of plainage. I was working on some Yak 1Bs.
Okay, very nice.
Nothing to do with Battle of Britain, but I had them and started painting them, I guess.
No, it's all good. I mean, like any kind of hobby that you get in, right? It's good. Whatever piques your interest, right? So
yeah, for sure. What about you, sir?
I'm kind of everywhere. Got what is it? Got some Star Wars Shatterpoint. I got working on a lot of terrain for the event coming in October, of course. So I was just working on the bunker hills for the beach landings. You've seen them actually. I brought them out that one day.
Yeah.
I have one right here actually.
Ooh.
So for all you guys watching it on YouTube and whatnot, you can see that it's coming along with the bunkers.
Sweet.
So, just doing the inside walls of the trenches, whatnot, layering the planks on the trenches. It's actually turned out quite well. So I got those 3 going. I've got to cut out another 3 and then do that again. Also started the 3D printer started coming up again. So just the bottom part of one of the tower bunkers right there. If you're watching on YouTube again, this one came out actually quite nice. So I've got to do the top for that. That one's done, and then I can start doing the foam cutting and whatnot.
Excellent.
Other than that, it's been playing Bolt Action, playing and learning Star Wars Shatterpoint, playing and learning the new 40K 10th edition as well, which I'm having a lot of fun with as well. And then just whatever kind of floats my boat in front of me and putting miniatures together. And I think I got like clone troopers, chaos demons, and like British infantry on my desk right now. So as you can see right in that section. So yeah, like I said, I'm all over the place. It's a disaster area in my hobby zone, but whose hobby zone isn't, right? So
no, they're born disasters.
So, but yeah, as it progresses, you'll see stuff on the Instagram and whatnot, especially as the bunker hills and stuff get a little bit closer to completion with the flock and all that stuff. So yeah, it'll look good. It'll be a lot of fun. I've already got some mats picked out that I got to order from the UK. I can't quite remember the company, but they look really sharp. They look really nice. Beachheads and whatnot, and the sand, and then the inland, right? So yeah, I'll have 2 of those coming in, and of course there is the bocage table that I have. I'll adjust that one a little bit. Got to make a whole bunch of trees and stuff too, and then a couple other tables that I'll be working on as well as the weeks progress. So
nice.
So yeah. So and the event actually went live. I believe yesterday. I put it up, or I shouldn't say yesterday. I should say on the Sunday. We got 4 people signed up for already, so we'll definitely have more as people start to see it come out. It should be a good time. It'll be a lot of fun. A lot of good support already from the players that have signed up. A lot of guys have messaged me, and hey, if you need anything, I'll help you out. So it's really good with the community, right? They, as you know, you've supported a lot of events too, so it's awesome. It's great. And I'm hoping that we can just increase the amount of players that come out to events and get things bigger and better. So
excellent.
Yeah. So long spiel, but there I am.
There it is. There you is.
So yeah. So I guess first topic of the night, Calvary. What are they good for, really, in game? That's kind of one of the questions that have come up. But before we actually answer that question, I'm sure Jason's Tomb of Knowledge is going to come out here right away. Just a little bit of history, I guess, with Calvary in World War II. I know, Jason, you're a bit more of a buff than I am, but there was.
Notice you said a buff, not you're not. You didn't
You're
say
not buff.
You are buff. Okay, just I have to clarify. Yeah.
So. Oh boy. So yeah, like history on the Calvary during World War II. Most of the time people kind of think about like the Polish cavalry, maybe the Waffen SS cavalry and whatnot. So it's definitely been used in World War II, probably early war.
Really the days of cavalry, as people think of them, because when you say the word cavalry, you think you think riding across the field and charging, and that's really not the reality of how they functioned then. There's still that tradition or mindset. They all trained for that, even though they didn't really do it that often. It did happen. Yeah. There was numerous times in especially Poland, because they had a lot of cavalry compared to most other armies who had a couple of units. And they have a really strong cavalry tradition. And but really, still, it's mostly catching rear echelon troops unawares. Is kind of finding a perfect moment if it comes up, but usually they weren't charging around. It was scouting troops is what they primarily were used for.
Mm-hmm.
The horses can get pretty much everywhere in most terrain types. They're fast, certainly faster than infantry. So they're kind of ideal scouts. They don't have to worry about fuel or any of that. They can live off the land a lot easier. So that's kind of what they're doing. But there were charges. Mentioned Poland. Really, most of the charges. I mean, everybody thinks like, oh, they charged the tanks. They didn't really charge the tanks. Those guys charged a bunch of infantry that didn't know what was going to hit them, or didn't know what hit them, and then a bunch of tanks burst out of a kind of a hidden position and caught them unawares, and those cavalry were mowed down. But there are other, and that's the famous one that was kind of publicized. But there were other situations where they would charge to kind of avoid encirclement.
Yeah.
In these big, massive encirclements, they had no choice. They had to break through different points in the line, and that's, I mean, even if you don't all get through, some of you do.
Yeah.
And like the British used cavalry. They had one cavalry unit still active at the beginning of the war. They fought in Syria and Iraq, but after that, they were converted to tanks.
Didn't the States also have, like the U.S. had cavalry as well? Like
the US
a unit in the Philippines or something like that?
They had a unit in the Philippines, and they had other cavalry units that kept their designation but didn't act as cavalry, didn't have horses.
Right.
The States was really mostly converted by the time they entered the war, with a few exceptions.
And of course, the French definitely used them as well.
Yep, French had some units. Again, most of them were converted even to more like mechanized infantry is kind of the role they started filling. But they had a couple of brigades, and they saw action in the first couple days of the German attack.
Yeah. And then, of course, with Germany and their struggle with transportation and whatnot, they've probably pretty much started using the cavalry as a mode of transportation and hauling for troops and material as well.
Yeah, certainly. By the time the Eastern Front opened up, they had one cavalry division that was mostly robbed of every horse. Everybody thinks of Germany as the they're so mechanized, yeah. But no, they're actually quite backwards. There was other armies that were significantly more mechanized than they were, especially their logistics were really backwards. In fact, if they didn't win as quickly as they did in like Poland and France, where they captured a lot of vehicles, trucks, they would have been in
bigger
even
trouble.
more trouble with their logistics.
Yeah,
but yeah, so it's kind of one of those things where they were there and they were used sometimes, but not really in the way you want to think about them, I guess.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And it's hard to
you hear the glory stories, right? Like you that's what you hear essentially, or you might see in miniatures or games or whatever. But
they are awfully fun.
So speaking of in game, I know you've used them in game.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've only actually ever seen you use them in game, to be honest. I do own some French cavalry, but I've yet to even field them. But yeah, cavalry. So cavalry in game. Let's just go a little run through them. So essentially, they act like infantry, except that they have a 9-inch advance and a 18-inch run.
Huge.
Yeah, which with the same restrictions of infantry, of course. Of course, they can't mount vehicles or enter buildings. They can't react by going down, but they do get a escape reaction, which is kind of like a recce.
Yep.
So there's that part, and then there's also they can dismount, of course, and then become infantry. The other thing too is while they're mounted, they're also tough fighters. So, and their regroup for like in combat and whatnot is also it's 2d6 instead of a d6. So a lot of benefits to them. You know, they did take away some of the stuff, which makes sense. I mean, only I would be capable of riding a horse and inside a house, you know, just bulldozing. But no.
Well, here's a question. Kidding. What if the building is a barn? Then can you enter it?
That's
Did they think of that, Warlord?
No. Obviously they did not, but you never know. You could make rules for that, of course, as a gentleman's game. So there is a possibility, you know, house rules, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's kind of their rules in a nutshell. And we'll talk about some of the units specifically for the nations that actually have cavalry units, and they slightly change a little bit. So they got some good stuff on them. I can see why, you know, you would want to take them. We'll go into some like pros and cons kind of about them and how we would use them. So, because you played the Polish cavalry, I believe, right, Jason?
Yep.
Yeah. So they've got some good stuff on them for sure. I got them written down here too. They're
excuse me.
They're kind of what they got and whatnot. So obviously, I mean, the pros for the cavalry, you know, they have speed. Essentially, you could get them to kind of where you want for objectives. You know, you can beat your opponent to the zones, essentially get them there if you want to kind of deploy them to have, you know, actually get into hard cover or something and make yourself a little bit of a fortification where now you're going to rush up your other troops and at least you have something there to give them cover, give them a chance to get there.
Which really is, I kind of touched on scouting as a role that cavalry played. I skipped over a little bit that kind of using them as a mobile reserve in a frontline action is another way they were used. So you're getting hit in your line particularly hard in a certain spot. You can move this cavalry a lot faster than you can move infantry behind your line to reinforce certain areas. And in the game, that's true too. For instance, you could set up basically if you were playing a large cavalry force, you could set up kind of a refused flank.
True.
And then zip on over, to the other side to outflank. You know, try to draw your opponent starts setting up opposite you.
That's like a redeploy, essentially.
Yeah, so you can move over way quick or try to draw his troops, to one portion of the board and then ignore them completely and zip on over while they're slogging across trying to. So you can really use them that way quite well.
Yeah. You could put them in reserve for an outflank.
You could too, yeah, and that so outflank. They're fast, so they can come on that edge with and get to objectives or hit target units for the mission or whatever is happening. Plus, if it is something like you're outflanking and you need to get that objective, but it's held by an enemy, you can hit them hard.
Yeah,
right.
No, it's true. From reserve coming on the board and then playing that side of the field, it could be a big shock. I consider them shock troops in a sense as well, especially in game. So they're very much, they're great. They do have counterparts to them in a sense, which we'll go into a little later as well. But yeah, like Jason said, just those kind of tactics, running them up the board or run them on the side of the board, whichever, put them in cover, just kind of waiting for their moment to strike, that kind of thing.
Yeah. That's the hard part of using them.
Yeah.
Is that, you want them to get in there as fast as they can and hit the enemy and have it be awesome.
Yeah.
But they are really vulnerable to incoming fire.
Yes.
And they're big and hard to hide sometimes.
So
the hard part is holding them, because they can move. You can hold them till a little bit later in the game and have them strike when you need it. When your inventory's up and shooting and supporting, hitting some units with some firepower and punching them in the face with a cavalry lance can be pretty brutal. Just jogging them up right on the first turn. I mean, you got to be careful. That's going to your next point, I think.
So no, it was good that you went with that route. There's the other factor I was going to say with them is they kind of are a fear factor for your opponent, right? Your opponent knows that they can move faster. Your opponent knows that they're going to get into position and that quite possibly will charge them, right? So if you end up playing the game and like getting your opponent to either have to activate the unit before you're able to actually charge, so you don't get shot, of course. Unless they put them in ambush, kind of thing. If you can get that off and get the charge, being that tough fighter with like a full squad of cavalry, because I don't think I would take anything less than a full squad. You literally could just rip apart one side of the board. Taking on infantry and whatnot. So they're really good for that. Really good for shock. Being shock troops, flanking, getting into position, holding objectives. A little bit of the cons on them, though, is they are and can be expensive.
Yeah.
So I was looking, and anywhere from 130 to 195 without upgrades for like vets, and then up to like 156 for regulars. Some units are, I think, up to like 12 or 13 strong. So that's one thing. They can chew up almost the amount of points for a tank or something. Like you said before, they're hard to hide. They're just such large units, I mean, if there's some decent sized buildings, you can take advantage of that.
They have fat pony asses. They are hard to hide. And I've done it. It's kind of fun. You see them like, all hunkered behind a little, outcropping of trees, trying to avoid getting shot.
Yep.
But it's really hard to hide them.
Easier to see. I mean, it's a taller miniature.
Yeah.
Harder to hide. When you do get hit, you're really going to feel it.
Yeah, it hurts.
Right? You don't get dismounted, but you're going to feel it because now that power, that shock power that you have is now kind of dwindling, right? And if you've misplayed them, then you're probably going to lose them right away. So I would probably take these guys as vets for sure, just to give them a bit more survivability, even though I don't usually play vets, but just seeing how vets are in game, definitely take them as that.
Especially where their intention is combat. I mean, they do have guns.
Yep.
Most of them, are equipped with carbines, or some are pistols. It depends on the units. Some even have rifles. But the reality is you're probably holding them to punch a guy in the face.
Yeah.
And, with a stick or a sword.
Yeah.
In which case, you're going to want the vets. If you're any units that you're intending to use to charge, you're going to want vets. And that's not saying that, in other units that aren't vets shouldn't charge. But if you're going into the game with, this is my punchy unit, if it fits your theme, or if, as long as you're not opposed to it for some reason, vets is the way to go big time.
Oh, for sure. I think they'll still have issues against armor, even though they, they'll excel in combat against infantry, but against tanks.
Yeah, no, avoid them.
Right. They're just not going to do it. You have other stuff in your army that hopefully can do it. The other con is it's I talked about putting him on the outflank and reserve kind of thing. It's a pro and a con, because you are putting that point sink of them into reserve, right, to try to outflank them, and they're kind of stuck in there. So when they come on, great, I'm sure they'll come on, get into position, they're there, but the army now is kind of like, the armies are kind of at that fighting point of like, shit's happened. There's been hits. Where do I need them? Maybe I picked the wrong side, that kind of thing, right? Maybe the battle has shifted over a bit. Luckily, you are cavalry, so you got speed for it, but just being delayed, you just might not get them going, right? So there's also that to consider, I guess, depending on what you're facing and whatnot too. So, there, that's some of the cons for them. I'm sure people could probably think of some more of them. But I think some of that is kind of, just looking at cavalry, pros and cons. I think the pros kind of outweigh the cons myself. So if you do use them, use them, get them to where you want them, and make sure you utilize and actually take advantage of their rules. So the one thing with them is they also do have a little bit of competition too with some armies, not all armies, right? And not all armies have cavalry, so. But motorbikes, they're faster. They move, 12 to 24. They can assault, so that's where they, have a one up. But these motorbikes can, if they're not moving, they can actually shoot their weapons, right? So, they're definitely used for different aspects of the game, but I think that's kind of their competition. So,
yeah, really, the motorbike is the mobile reserve.
mm-hmm.
They fill that role only.
Yeah.
Where cavalry has a bit more flexibility. They can be hard hitting, especially if you play it smart and don't run them up right away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it's hard. It's hard, man. When you know you have this like hand grenade that you can just chuck at the enemy, and you gotta wait. You gotta hold. You pulled the pin. You already started your game, but you gotta hold it. It's hard. You just want to let them loose, but just wait. You'll win the game on turn 5.
Well, if you're a guy like me who tends to like bull rush the enemy in most games, you know, that's kind of my style is get in there and get them dirty. It may or may not work for you, you know. I can recall a moment in a cavalry charge against Jason in a different game on the very first turn that did not go so well for me. Made crazy rolls for the charge, but didn't do too well in the fight. So
didn't work out.
so, but let's go through. I guess we can go through some of these units for some of the nations that actually have cavalry. So we'll start off with the Waffen SS cavalry. So they're veterans and they have fanatics, and that's really about it for them. So a little pricey, but at least with fanatics they can kind of stick around for a while. You know.
Yeah.
Only option really is veteran. So.
You know, the fanatics on cavalry is nice. I assume. I never played fanatics on cavalry, but I'm assuming that sticking around is a big deal.
Yeah, they're kind of plain Jane, but the fanatics helps. So, and a lot of these cavalry, like some of them have some other special rules. So, you have next up is your French cavalry. Again, they're veterans. I think you can take regulars as well, but they're pretty straightforward. They have carbines, and you can get an LMG, which most of these units can get, or SMGs. That's the one thing with the SS cavalry. They can get SMGs, which when they're on foot, now they're doing a different role, right? But yeah, for the French, they're just straightforward, just basically an infantry squad with the cavalry with the horses. So move them around, do their thing, get them in position.
Get them into prime positions or objectives.
Yeah.
Dismount and hunker down.
That's
exactly. Wait for the two-legged cavalry to catch up to help support you.
Yeah, for sure. We have actually a Japan cavalry. Manchukuo, I think it's called. They're
something like that.
Cavalry, yeah. There's LMG in the squad. They actually get tough fighter special rule. So not only do they get it on cavalry, but they have it when they're as infantry as well, when they dismount. So they kind of doubled down on that. And the one thing that's interesting about them as well is when you take a unit of these, you're actually able to upgrade your HQ to have cavalry, to be on cavalry as well. So cool thing is you can actually kind of do a themed army as well with this. But having tough fighters, on horseback and off horseback is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Japan has their own fanatic thing too, so they're pretty good. And then, Jason, your Polish cavalry.
Yay.
Yeah, you can get as both regular and vets.
Yep.
195 for Rets, I think, without upgrades.
Yeah, they're beefy boys, and they also have the you can upgrade HQ to be cavalry, so you can do a whole force of cavalry.
Mounted. Yep, they have the same thing. And then they also have lances.
Yes,
which gives them an extra attack in close quarters. So, which is interesting because it's not. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. It's essentially, when you charge, that's close quarters. So, having an extra attack plus being tough fighter,
yeah,
that's pretty freaking good.
Yeah, they can really hit hard.
Yeah.
But they can also flub. I've had it. I've had them flub. You know, I roll in with my beefy unit. I'm rolling like 40K style handful of dice, and I whiff on almost all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And in return, lose a couple and lose the combat.
So that was your worst moment.
Yeah.
What was your best moment with them?
Oh, who was it against? Oh, I can't remember. I ended up almost wiping a unit on a charge.
Nice.
So I won the combat by like 6. I lost 1, I think. And they just murdered. And the other thing about their charge too is, or combats in general, they get a 2d6. What do you call it? Redeployment roll.
The regroup.
Yeah, regroup roll.
Like a consolidation almost.
Consolidation, yeah.
Yep.
So you can actually hit and then move back to cover, or get into a position to threaten or loom over other units quite nicely.
Yeah, that's true. True. And they got some cool looking minis.
And they're cool. They're forgetting all the rules, they do look just kind of cool.
If you're definitely the hobbyist, there's some nice cavalry miniatures out there that you can definitely paint up. So a little bit different than just painting just the infantry. But luckily enough, you usually get the infantry with the cavalry. And then the other one that I came across, it's for the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
The Mongolian cavalry. So they have born in the saddle. So they can actually fire their guns while they're on horseback.
Yeah.
So that puts a whole different spin on them. They also have swords, but they also have the anti-tank grenades and the tank hunter rule. So instead of something being superficial against vehicles,
they can actually run up. These guys are probably the beefiest. The Polish are decent with their hard-hitting attack, but these guys are certainly the most flexible.
Yeah.
Being able to shoot while mounted means you don't have to lose your horses to get some. I mean, and you can ride right up next to their face, shoot them at point blank. And the idea that you can assault vehicles, which assaulting vehicles can be killer. And you're going to run I'm not sure what their, I can't remember what their max unit size is. It's probably at least 10.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't have it written down here. But
yeah, so it's
usually
10 or 12.
Usually it's like 10 plus the NCO.
Yeah, so
it's a weird number. But
so they can ride on up with the anti-tank grenades. They don't have to take a morale check or a order check to charge that tank, they can do it from 18 inches away. And then if it doesn't work out, or if it does work out, but no matter what, you get to regroup 2d6 inches away from the tank. So you can pop in, hit the tank, and ride off into the sunset.
Into the sunset, yeah.
And even if you don't kill it. And and worst comes to worst, probably that tank cost a bit more than your cavalry, even as expensive as cavalry are, or at least close to. So the worst comes to worst is you have one unit tying up another unit about equal points cost, and it's kind of a draw as far as point sync goes. But that unit can be deadly.
As being a cavalry and being able to actually take out a tank, and if you do take a tank out.
I like tank to tank.
You're definitely winning, right? Like that's a good winning hit that is worth it, even though you spent a lot of points on the cavalry. Just taking the tank out of the field, just take that threat off of the field, and now you're the threat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And I like what you said earlier, too. You mentioned that they're kind of a psychological unit. I think they are.
Yeah.
Every time I've played them. And part of it is not a lot of people use them. So it's just kind of fear of the unknown. You don't, you kind of probably read the rules. You don't remember exactly, so you get a little bit worried or panicky about them. And hell, even if that's what they do is they soak up a lot of fire, that can be worth it too.
Yeah.
If they cause that big of a distraction where they're going after your cavalry instead of focusing on the objective of the game, that can be quite handy.
Well, become that harassing unit, right?
Yeah.
So like you said, while their focus is on the cavalry and the rest of your army is getting up closer and supporting, then they're doing their job for sure. So nice. That's pretty good. That's kind of our take on the cavalry portion. I'm sure there's other ideas and thoughts, that you guys are probably have on the matter. Maybe you do play with cavalry all the time. Maybe you've experienced some battles with cavalry. Like me and Jason both said, we don't really see it here too much, but we definitely have come across it a couple times, if not played it a couple times. So if there's anything you guys want to add or whatever, just put it in the comments and hit us up. We can have a good conversation about it. Message us, whichever. So that'll be good. Next up, we have tanks. The think tank. The anti-armor think tank. So first off, Jason, what's your favorite tank?
Favorite tank is, should I say Sherman? Because I have like a gajillion of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe. No. It's got to be a stupid one. It is the Tetrarch.
Fair enough.
It is a tank that flies in a plane back in the day, or flies in a glider, and they drive it out and are able to start fighting. It's terrible. It's not a very good tank. Tank v tank, it's terrible. But if you're landing with the airborne, you're probably or hoping not to land next to a bunch of tanks anyway.
True.
So just for the fact that it's a tank that can fly, it's kind of cool.
Very nice.
And it looks stupid. It looks stupid and little, and I love it.
Mm-hmm. Always with the weird ones, eh, Jason?
Just a stupid little tank.
Nice.
What's yours, sir?
Well, I'm more of a classic guy. So my favorite tank it's a German tank.
Oh God, don't say it.
Yeah. What am I going to say, Jason?
You're going to say Tiger.
No.
Nope. Panther.
No.
Stugleif.
No. Close, but no.
Panzer IV. Okay.
Panzer IV. Panzer IV is the kicker. Yeah, the Panzer IV to me is always kind of that iconic tank for the German side for me, more so than the Tiger, even though the Tiger is always plastered everywhere, right?
Yeah, it looks cool.
I don't know. I've liked the Panzer IV. I've had a lot of fun with it, not only in game or bolt action, but other World War II games in different systems and whatnot too. And yeah, just one of those ones that stood out for me. The shape of it, the look of it, and just the amount of essentially firepower that it put out for its time. So that was my favorite, and I'm sure a lot of other people really liked it too.
It really evolved too. You can say that it went through like I think they had to do 4 alphabets to.
There's a lot of different variants.
Did they get to the Panzer IV Z? Probably. Pretty close.
It was essentially one of those tanks that they definitely did a lot of upgrades to over the years and stuff.
Yeah, certainly the workhorse. I agree with you. I think should be the tank that people think of when they think of Germany.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it does look like a smaller version of the Tiger.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what people are thinking of.
Could be.
they just don't know it.
Could be. Yeah. So in general, tanks in games in the game of bolt action, and this is with like the reinforced platoon theater selector in mind, of course. Just your generic, throw me down games that you have at your shop or your buddy's basement or whatever.
Bring 3 anti-tank guns. Oh, sorry. You said just a basic reinforced. Okay.
So, yeah. So, like in general, tanks kind of running around uncontested, can be really disastrous for an opponent's army, right? Mm-hmm. In general, kind of my idea is anytime I build an army, I'm always thinking of, I should have some sort of way to deal with enemy armor. Depending on what army I'm building, of course, some nations have way better options than others.
Yeah.
Like we know that, right? So kind of understanding like the armor and like tanks in bolt action, usually there's one on the board. Depending on what you're playing, sometimes people can take 2 reinforced platoons, and next thing you know, you have 2. If you're playing theater selectors, there could be multiple. It could be a whole platoon of them. Or if you're playing tank war, but that's a whole other story. So most commonly, you'll have 1 tank, and in general, you're looking at probably, I'd say what most common tank would be value damage of like 9 and probably has like 2 machine guns on it.
Probably it's medium tanks that people are taking.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're playing really early war or something very specific, generally people are going with a medium tank. Yeah. So yeah.
And usually you'll have either a medium AT gun, or some of them will have a heavy AT gun. So I think, like Panzer IVs, T-34-85s, maybe the Easy 8s. Those are, the Shermans. You'll probably find majority of the time guys using them. I've seen a few Panzer IIIs, stuff like that, right? So more than likely that's kind of the tank middle ground that you'll see on the board. Anywhere from like, I don't know, 230, 240 points, probably regular, so.
Yeah, you don't often see veteran tanks out there just because of the cost.
Yeah. And like you said, depending if you're playing early war, you might see lighter tanks, which even lighter tanks in those early war battles can cause a bit of a ruckus too, right? Because the anti-tank weaponry wasn't really there as of yet, except for maybe some lighter guns, lighter AT guns and whatnot. So they had it. Some of it wasn't that great. Some of the tanks, were more machine gun boats than anything, which is actually quite effective in game. But on the other aspect of things, you could get players that decide to go the heavier route and bring this behemoth of a tank, that has higher armor on them, or just a bigger gun, that kind of thing, right? Tigers, Churchills, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of an understanding of armor, the tanks in the game. Obviously, there's a huge amount of tanks. Can't list them all, of course, and whatnot, talk about them all, but a lot of them are very similar. And we've covered some of this stuff in the faction podcasts that we've kind of done. So a lot of them are similar straight across the board. Some special rules here and there. So
for taking them out, the way to start, I think, is actually with the most common thing you have in your army. Infantry, baby.
So that's it's funny enough you say that. That's on my list. So the infantry, because you can equip most of the time them with the anti-tank grenades.
Yeah. Right. Most armies have access to some form of anti-tank grenade.
Yeah.
And it is worth it. It is worth it. In general, what is it? 2 points a model?
Yeah, usually.
So it's 2 points a model. Usually your squads are 10 models. So you're paying 20 points just to have something else that the tank is afraid of. Because you can assault an enemy tank without any tank grenades.
Yep.
But it's hard. It's a -3 to an order test you have to take. But if you have in order to assault the tank, as soon as you declare the assault, you have to take an order test, and it's a -3 to be able to do it at all. Otherwise, you don't. So having the anti-tank grenades means you don't have to do that. You skip that whole shabazz, and you just do it as long as you can reach them.
Yeah. And
it is difficult to pull off, but it happens. And it's not even that crazy. It does happen, especially if you have all your units and with anti-tank grenades, and you remember. That's the big thing. Oh yeah, I can assault this guy, because quite often the tanks, at least in most of the games I see, are kind of flippant about the infantry, and they roll on up and they're feel impervious, and maybe to a degree they are. And these guys roll on in. You do your assault. You basically do a combat against the tank. If the tank hasn't moved, every guy in the squad gets an attack. He needs to hit on a 4. If the tank has done an advance, you need to hit on a 6. And if it ran, you can't assault it.
Yeah.
So for every hit you get, either a 4 or a 6, depending if it stayed still or advanced, every hit you get, counts as a +1 pen to a penetration roll you make. So if I got 5 hits, then I get a +5 pen. I roll a d6, add 5, and if I penetrate the armor, it's worked out just like as if I had shot it,
Yeah,
So
on the damage table. Yep.
on the damage table, yeah. So it's not too crazy, especially if you catch it still. If it moves, you have probably 10 guys. Getting 6s, you're probably not going to roll enough to be able to do that. You might get lucky. But if it stays still on 4s with 10 dice,
it's a good chance.
Yeah, that's a decent chance.
And and not to mention, and I've been caught with this. Actually, Jason got me with this one. Is those pintle mounted weapons? If you unbutton your hatch and you fire those, and you get assaulted by infantry, bye Charlie. Like
they're open topped.
Yeah, you're essentially all they need to do is damage you, and you're done.
Yeah.
And I've lost a stug like that. So a lot of it is timing, right? A lot of it is definitely timing when to assault a tank. I've also done it where I've taken the chance of assaulting a tank, and it didn't dawn on me that he hadn't activated yet, and he opened fire. Yeah. It looked so close to for range, and I was actually just out of the minimum range, and he was able to open fire with his machine gun, and he destroyed my chances of even attacking the tank, right?
Yeah. So, which is another thing to mention is think about A, did it use its dice? And B, think about the arcs.
Yes.
So if you're, for instance, charging from a side arc, all of a sudden that whole mount doesn't get to shoot. Your coax might, depending on where the turret's pointed, but it doesn't get to move to shoot. It's a shoot as is.
Mm-hmm.
So unless he decides to open up his hatch and fire with the pintle mount, which is a risky proposition, you could potentially not have to worry about that as long as you thought about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been caught I've been caught like that too.
So that's kind of the close combat. There are some special units that can do things a little differently with, tank mines and this and that.
Yeah.
But those are very, very specific. But the other option, which is a common option in armies as well, of course, is your anti-tank gun. Love them or hate them, they still give you an option in your army. So
generally, they're not very many points.
No,
especially the smaller ones. They roll around the 65 to 95 kind of point range, and they, if anything, can be a great area denial weapon. You just put them down with a good arc of fire where you don't want an enemy tank to go, and probably that enemy tank is going to try not to go there. I mean, it's not always the case, and if it's not, then the enemy tank is risking itself going to those positions. So,
yeah. And some of them. Go ahead, Jason.
Sorry, I do feel that the hardest part about an anti-tank gun is its initial placement.
Yeah.
Or where you come on the board, because, I mean, you're not moving the thing. I mean, even if you have a tow.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes you a turn just to basically, mount up and move, and then you gotta next turn you gotta dismount, and then you're not allowed to fire till you're talking half the game to reposition, or a quarter of the game or a third of the game.
I've been
very rare.
I've been caught in those positions where it's just even the way the terrain is laid out, and it's like this is horrible. Like, why did it even take this thing, right? Like, you get caught in that position. Trying to improve your shot, you're always looking at the flank shot if you can get one, which is not easy. There's usually something in the way, right? It's a one shot trick pony, so you're always looking for the one shot, one kill, which doesn't always happen. And then
one thing to remember with these anti-tank guns too is the ambush dice. These things are made for ambush, baby. Like, especially if you can get that area, you get that zone that you want to deny, and you throw that ambush on. As soon as any little baby tank pops its head out to smell the air or feed on some grass, you kick it in the ass.
Mm-hmm. Jason must have read my notes for this episode.
Oh, nice.
That's exactly what I had written down too.
Great minds think alike, Andy.
Yep. So and not not including what Jason just said about the ambush rule, timing it just right for when you want to stop him will give you the best opportunity to fire your weapon before he gets in the cover and stuff. But also using that in combination with like choke points, right? If that unit, that vehicle, that tank, mainly tanks, but obviously you use it for other vehicles. If there's that choke point and he's got to cross it or he's got to come into it, well, you're firing with the ambush for sure. But the other thing with them is you can use them in combination with another anti-tank weapon or unit. Mainly with a tank, of course, right? So a lot of times it comes down to deployment as well. Your opponent will probably delay their tank until the very end, if possible. So by you having, a tank and an anti-tank weapon, there's a good chance that one of yours will be set up, ready to go against one of his tank, his or her tank, I should say. But at the same time, it can happen both ways. Most players will think that way. Try to delay, try to out deploy the other person. It also depends on the dice when they come up, so it can happen. So anti-tank guns, not everybody's favorite. I've had some success with them, especially considering with my DAC army, I play with an 88.
Well, yeah, 88s are,
but
they're also not in that El Cheapo range either.
No, they're not. An 88 is very good. I tend to use it more for its
artillery.
Yeah, like the HE, right?
That's another thing to mention is that some nations have, not all of them, but some have, a bunch of them actually have
dual purpose kind of weapons.
Dual purpose guns, and those are where a strictly AT gun, maybe sometimes, but dual purpose, I mean, especially here's the worst scenario. Oh baby, I got my anti-tank gun. Oh, this guy has no tanks.
Yeah.
So what I have is a crappy artillery piece. So the dual purpose there are more points, but worth the points.
More options. Yep, exactly. So other ranged options for anti-tank fighting essentially is boiling down to anti-tank rifles, which can be very beneficial for lighter tanks, lighter vehicles, and not only that, but sometimes they can be used as a different type of sniper. Just because they give extra damage, right, or extra pen.
They're cheap.
Yeah.
There's a couple armies that can have multiple in a bog basic reinforced platoon.
Yep.
And they're effective against early war light tanks, or against trucks, jeeps, APCs, those kind of things.
Armored cars.
Armored car, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And even against tanks, and here's why. As soon as I have a pen value, I can cause a pin. And they have a decent range. They're really mobile. They're small teams, so they're hard to hit. And they're cheap. And I can cause pins on your tanks. And the best way to fight a tank is to not fight it. So if I can have a cheapo anti-tank rifle, plug in, cause a pin. He's not going to hurt you really, but he causes that pin, and you fail your order test, and your tank does nothing for a whole turn. Oh baby!
Yeah, Jason, you definitely read my notes.
Yeah. Oh, I have. Yeah. There you go. But would you have said, "Oh baby"? I don't know. This is where you hold up the notebook and it says, "Say, oh baby."
Oh baby. Yeah. But it's true. It's true. You don't necessarily have to destroy a tank, right? You could pin them out. You can force them to take that rally test. You can force them to make that decision of actually taking the shot and failing, and then being put into bad position because you got to back up.
And actually, can I interject to put in with the category of anti-tank rifle?
Sure.
An HMG.
Yep.
It's a very underutilized unit for that purpose. Are they particularly good? No. Are they going to kill tanks? No. For a relatively cheap weapon, can they cause pins on a tank and maybe make them not do anything? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And anything that can do that, right? Some are more reliable than others. Like, I wouldn't count on a mortar to be very successful with that, even though you'll get a lucky string of rolls and you'll land the hit and you'll actually destroy the tank or just apply a lot of pins. We've seen it and we know it.
But mortars again though, it's hard because probably a tank's going to move, so you're not going to range in. Yeah. So you got to count on that 6, but maybe you don't have another target.
Yeah,
true. Take the shot. You have a pen value. You're hitting on the top. Take the shot. Maybe on a light vehicle, a mortar can potentially do it sometimes. Especially early war, and if you can't, chuck a pin on it.
Yep. And it also depends on the size of the mortar, right? When I play my Soviets, it's usually a heavy mortar, so
they're quite beefy.
But anything that can give you extra pins, there's a very slight chance that it will work, but if it does, then there's pins happening and possibly damage, right? If you immobilize him, perfect, right? He's not going anywhere now, right? So you got that. You have some of the favorite units, I think, for most players to put into their armies, and we're talking the shaped charges, the bazookas, Panzerschrecks. We got some Panzerfausts, and I think one of Jason's favorite, It's a British weapon.
Piat!
The Piat. Yeah.
Little marshmallow shooter.
Yeah. So these ones are probably what most maybe cost effective.
Yeah, I mean, especially like I use the Piat because I have Canadians, British, but really, I have a bazooka is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
For I can't remember exactly 60 points, maybe.
Yeah, like 50 to 70 points, depending on what rank
And
they are.
bazookas, if I remember correctly, have a 24-inch range.
Yep.
Yeah, man, I'll take that all day.
So it's nice with them because they're small teams.
They're hard to hit.
Yeah.
They're cheap. That's two, pros. They're harder to get into position because you have to slog with the infantry. They do become a target, which is a bad thing. But is it? So, I mean, sometimes just having a unit that soaks up firepower, and then using those kind of units in conjunction with advancing infantry does one of two things. Either the tank's too busy dealing with the infantry and other stuff, and they're able to kind of get up close to get that shot, or they focus all their fire on getting rid of this anti-tank weapon and forget about the infantry, who's able to hopefully get in for an assault if they need to.
Yeah.
So working any of these things in conjunction. Another thing with the anti-tank gun being in ambush, I found using multiple ambush or dealing with a recce vehicle, firing at it with one thing to try to force it in a particular direction because it has to go away from you and out of line of sight. Yeah. So trying to force it into an ambush, which you can activate, can also be pretty deadly.
Setting up your shot, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good idea. That's actually a really good idea. And I think I've seen you use that before a few times.
With a 17-pounder.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, lots of options, lots of good stuff, especially with these bazookas, Panzerschrecks, that kind of stuff. Being able to put yourself in a position where you're going to get some cover, you're a small team, and you're still be able to be offensive with those weapons and take the shot and not worry too much about incoming shots. Only thing one big thing you got to worry about that is snipers, of course.
Yeah.
That's with most small teams anyways. But definitely if I'm building those armies that have them, I'll take them if I can, depending on era as well. I've played a lot of Germans and I've actually haven't really used much of it because of the eras that I play. And then of course there's two others I like to touch on. We'll go with one of the other small teams. Sometimes they're a small team. Sometimes they're part of a infantry unit, usually engineers or pioneers, or they're actually on vehicles as well, is the flamethrowers.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So they can be very, very effective against tanks. So be it you have another tank that has gotten that close to the opponent, just not even doing really the damage. You're more of trying to get the pins and then making the crew make a order check and failing, and they abandon ship essentially.
Yeah, that immediate morale check is big, and the morale check is applied using with all the pins occurred with the attack.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that can be devastating.
Yeah.
I mean, It's also, I've seen it a lot of times where the flamethrower, you planned it perfectly. It gets right up close. The tank didn't even notice. You get the beautiful spout of flame to go, and you're wafting it over. And just as you are about to touch the tank, the flame goes out, and nothing happens to the tank because you didn't roll high enough.
Yep.
And then your guy's stuck there, like
runs out of
usually
fuel
in the open, and then he runs out of fuel, so then he's out anyway. Yeah, all that fun stuff. But I have seen it happen where, I mean, they just barbecue that tank, and there's not a whole lot you can do. It's hard to pass a morale check with that, presumably that many pins.
No, it's true.
And even if it does pass its morale check, it's sitting there with 4 pins, 5 pins, 6 pins. Like you can, it really layers on the pins.
Yeah, as soon as you get those pins on you, then you got to make that decision, and usually it's going to be a rally, right? But then you're open season next turn for same kind of thing.
Yeah,
but if you don't survive the tank or the flamer, then obviously you're kaput. If you do survive, you usually have a whole bunch of pins on you. It's very effective. The one thing with it is it's obviously super short range. So you got to position yourself, or you got to maneuver yourself, or be in a vehicle or transport that can get you up there with the risk of being shot up. It happens quite often. You think you've hidden your transport away, but nope, somebody's moved around and gotten an angle on you. So, but very effective nonetheless. Flamethrowers are actually really, really good in the game. I've seen a lot more of them over the last year or so, myself included. I like them in the engineer teams and the pioneer teams.
Yeah, it just gives them a little cushion.
Yeah.
Engineer-sized human shield.
And it lets you take more than just one in a force if you wanted to. So, and then the next big ticket, of course, is just fielding another tank.
Yeah.
Plain and simple, right? There are tanks that have different options to them. Some of them can get better armor in the front. Obviously, some have different guns, So maybe
it should be mentioned too that there are tanks literally called tank destroyers.
Yes,
that is 100% their only job.
Yeah, exactly. They're a little harder to work with and position. You don't have a turret like most other, common tanks.
Yeah, the reality is this game doesn't actually reflect the use of tank destroyers that well. It's honestly, a tank destroyer should be firing before, when the infantry around that tank are little tiny, in the vision, they're little tiny specks. So, you're talking, they're shooting from the other side of the Legion Hall.
Yeah.
if you're playing on table. But yeah.
They're snipers, right?
Yeah. With BA guns.
Yes. I mean, I do like tank destroyers. Usually when I play any kind of tank game and stuff like that, they have a little place in my heart.
They're fun. They look cool. Stug Life, bro.
Yeah, Stug Life, exactly. That's the one I have painted. But a lot of different ones, I think they're pretty neat. They're a different aspect to tanks in general. They usually carry, like you said, a bigger gun. They just don't have, most of the time, they don't have like the machine gun support and the maneuverability of the turret. So, unfortunately, things happen. You get rocked, and now you're immobilized, or you're done, right? Or you you get put into a position where you fail your order check and you got to back out or whatever, and now you're kind of in a weird position. So, but other than that, like, again, in combination with other things in your army, you definitely could take advantage of that with the tank. You can position yourself in better positions. You can utilize other units to try to work the field a little bit, so that when it does come time for you using your tank, that, you know, maybe you got a flank shot, maybe they took the bait, you know, maybe you've already threw a few pins and you're going to get more pins on them. Hopefully you're going to get the kill shot, right? So it's nice because not only is your tank going against the other tank with its main gun, but you're also supporting your infantry with the machine guns against other infantry or threats. That could be a threat to your tank as well, right? You know, put those machine gun shots into that bazooka team that's coming at you, kind of idea, right? So
yeah.
So yeah, we all love tanks. There's a gazillion of them throughout the game. Miniature wise, you know, we all have quite a few. I'm pretty sure I have, like, I don't know, 20 plus myself.
Oh,
you know,
20 plus Shermans.
Yeah, well, most people, shouldn't say most people, but I know a lot of guys who have divisions of, you know, tanks. You know, I know Thomas has a lot himself as well,
yeah.
right? But they're great. It's fun. I like painting up the tanks. I was very pleased with my Panzer III when I got it done up. So, but yeah, that's kind of our take on.
I have to.
I'm missing something.
You're missing something.
What am I missing? What am I missing?
You're missing an air observer and an artillery observer.
Oh, good calls. Good calls. Good calls.
Yeah. I mean, they're not perfect at it. And that's not the only reason you're going to take them.
Yeah.
But they can do it. And if anything, I mean, that artillery observer, that thing disperses that tank. That tank is probably going to waste its turn getting out of the area.
Mm-hmm.
More than worrying about what it's trying to do. So if you call that artillery strike near a tank, that tank is probably going to start backing up or moving or getting out of the way instead of whatever it was going to do. Even if you don't kill it, that's taken one turn of effectiveness off of that tank. And the air observer is even better, actually has a better chance of eliminating a tank.
Just that strafing.
Yeah, especially since you can choose a target instead of point.
Yeah.
So he can't really get away from it. So those are two more.
No, those are good calls. I can't believe I forgot that, and I use air observers.
Womp womp.
Yeah, no, it's good. They're very good points because, especially the air observer, like you said, they rack up pins, but they also have the possibility of landing that hit on the actual target. So,
yeah, and if you get the big boy plane too,
yes,
I mean that could be
the bomber. Yeah. No, very true. Very good points. I'm sure there'll be a comment with others.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, appreciated and welcome. So let us know what you think. If you got ideas, you know, how you play, what you use to deal with tanks. I do know there's some other anti-tank teams and stuff out there too. But we love to hear the ideas. If there's any other topics and stuff that you guys would love to hear about, we can always take a look at that and drum up an episode here and there. I do believe what I'm going to try to do is, as Jason has gotten the new book for the Blood Red Skies, it was a Wing Commander.
Yep.
I believe, right? That's what you said. We have played a few times of the regular Blood Red Skies, and it's been a lot of fun. It's a very simple game, easy to easy to set up and play and have fun with. But as Jason gets a couple of weeks in with the new book, we'll definitely bring you on and talk some smack about Blood Red Skies.
Yeah, I'm on board. I am all in. This campaign, we only did the one. Elias and I, just before bedtime, we rolled what our next mission's going to be.
Nice.
So that we can play tomorrow or the next day.
Nice.
But yeah, we're stoked. It's super fun. Like, you even roll like personality of your pilots. And you can roll like what their jobs were before the war.
Oh wow.
And that can play into, because you also have support staff at your squadron, and they do different bonuses and things for you, possibly. And your interaction with the pilots and this staff can affect. It's really so far neat. I'm loving it. It adds a little bit of record keeping, but if you're on board with doing
like an RPG,
it honestly, it made Blood Red Skies a mini RPG.
Nice.
It is super cool. Nice. I'm stoked.
Yeah, we'll definitely check it out and get you on for that. We'll do an episode of breakdown and just your thoughts and whatnot on the game too for this new expansion that came out for it.
Sweet.
So I'll probably have to pick it up as well and get involved.
Do it.
One of us. Exactly right.
Yeah.
So perfect. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Hopefully the info and what we were talking about helps out and gives you a better understanding of things in bolt action and tactics and what units and troops and tanks are all about in the game. Again, Jason, thank you very much for joining as my battle buddy.
Well, my pleasure.
So
I don't know what that was about.
All good. That was your American Civil War coming out.
Yeah, I guess
so. And thank you everybody for tuning in and listening. Like I said, hope you enjoyed. Check out our socials, Facebook, Instagram. We do have the Trident Wargaming website as well, especially mainly for articles and some of the 40K leagues and whatnot circuit that we have. But otherwise, again, thank you. Hope you enjoyed. Get those models painted, build it, paint it, play it, and see you on the battlefield.
Bye.